So obviously the first thing that was shown off today was, well, the second thing technically, because they opened with a Black Ops 6 sort of teaser setting that up for later, but it was Doom: The Dark Ages, which is our first look at the new version of id Tech running. And it's sort of a new take on the Doom concept in that it is more of an open looking game. And it seems like they've sort of developed a lot of new concepts and ideas that we've not seen in Doom before, as if they've basically maxed out the nostalgia runway at this point, and they needed to come up with something new and different. And I think they've kind of done that here. There's the shield system, there's the painkiller-esque stake gun, and there's a lot of other things that we see in this trailer, not to mention the excellent tech and massive new levels, which actually does sort of feed into the game design, I think, somewhat, Alex, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think in this case here, we're looking at a game that is targeting a current-gen hardware only, with a lot more CPU space there. We saw in the like open plains environment that the trailer's like constantly snapping to like new areas when I think a weapon is changed or an ability is used, and they do like the really cool, the animation of the first-person model stays the same, but the environment changes thing. And there we see like in this one plains area, almost like roaming mobs, not like an MMO, but more, I would say, like a classic Doom level.
Right.
And in that case, because, Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal tended to lock you down to battle arenas. They did it a variety of different ways. Like sometimes, like on the Foundry, they would only lock down the arena when you would punch a gore nest or whatever, and then they'd start spawning in enemies. But here, based upon the trailer at least, it looks like a much more freeform, larger level size. And I think you can get also a little bit of taste of that when it looks like the Slayer is flying around on some sort of dragon, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, what was that?
I don't know. I'm curious to see what the level design is, because it did focus on this like large, castle-y, gothic looking like hellscape area with not too many, in Doom 2016 or Doom Eternal, you had the various missions. I'm not sure if this is a mission-based game based upon what we're seeing here. I don't know what the structure is, but it looks wider. That's for certain.
I'm wondering about that because they do show that part where the Doom Slayer sort of is in like some sort of a capsule and he's being handed his double barrel shotgun and his shield, and then he's blasting down from a ship, right? And I'm wondering, is that just like, that could just be an intro cinematic. It doesn't need to be the whole game structure. I didn't mind the mission structure of Doom Eternal, and it was a good way to explain why they were going to so many places, but it did feel a little bit, I don't know, it broke the flow just a bit in a way that wasn't the case in 2016. So I'm curious to see what they do with that. But yeah, you're right about not only is it much more open and there's roaming mobs, but the sheer number of enemies on screen at any point is massively ramped up, which is really cool. And also he's just kind of like blasting right through them with the shield in a way that's pretty neat, I would say. Yeah. In that normally in the other one, it felt like you needed to do a lot of glory kills all the time to sort of keep things up. And that's how you got your ammo and stuff. And in fact, did we see any of that? Is there any?
No.
I'm looking at
no glory kills so. Necessarily.
No glory kills. No glory kills, but also no. So that was the mechanic of Eternal, right? It's like you would kill enemies to get like ammo and other power ups by doing glory kills.
There are actually no ammo pinatas, as I would call them in this in this trailer.
That's a good term.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, which I think points at a very different design document at this point. Because, like they need, if you had all these like arenas, they can't just have like constantly respawning, like, they had some way to get you forward moving in the combat. And here, I'm curious if it is actually like ammo packs and health packs distributed around the level, but we don't see any of that, obviously. Here.
It's hard to know if they would just like not really show that in the trailer or if it's genuinely a shift in the overall design. But either way, it's very promising. But then so is of course the engine tech.
Yeah.
Obviously, as an id Software game, I would say they're going to prioritize high frame rates over everything else. It's obviously going to be 60 FPS. Maybe there will be a 120 FPS mode as well. We'll see. one thing that we were debating on before recording here is whether the ray tracing features from Eternal have been retained here. And it's very difficult to say based on this trailer because there's not a lot of reflections visible.
Yeah.
But there's a couple points where effects are occluded by the player's hand, but you can still see them in the reflection, which makes me think that possibly it's still here. I don't know. What do you think, Oliver?
Yeah, like 107, you can see an effect, an enemy attack that's reflected despite the player's hand kind of occluding it partially. And then at 34 seconds, the super shotgun has a little bit of a reflection of the environment. Looks, fairly diffuse, but also, not really in screen space too much there. So I'm not sure if they're using RT reflections. It's possible, and they are throwing around like a lot of puddles as well, which is always conspicuous.
Yeah.
Like in sort of like how in Doom Eternal, when they updated that game for RT, they revised a lot of the surfaces to be more glossy, right? If you're just throwing in those glossy surfaces, it makes me think you're trying to show off something. So. But I mean, technically speaking, this is a really good looking effort. The materials, the overall quality of the lighting, it all looks really, really good. I think this game is going for a little bit less of a bright and colorful aesthetic than 2016, or rather than Doom Eternal did. Maybe a little closer to 2016, maybe even a little bit more realistic than that title. It's a lot of like desaturated colors and organic surfaces, not so much like artificial, and not too many metals as well. It's more a little bit more grounded than that. So I think it's a really appealing looking game, judging from this trailer, and certainly the scope is the thing that does stand out as being like the most expanded here, but also just like the geometry and the quality of the lighting and everything like that. It's always been top notch in like id Tech, recent id Tech games, id Tech 6 games, and this looks like an evolution from that potentially.
Shout out to the skull munching personal rocket launcher or whatever that weapon
is. The like
flechette
thing that spits out bits of skull. Yeah, it's fun.
Whatever that was an inspired design. Let me tell you, that does give me Painkiller vibes.
A lot of this, and like the nail gun that pins the guy to the wall,
gun or whatever.
Yeah,
exactly.
Totally Painkiller vibes. I actually got such big Painkiller vibes. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Oh,
dude,
man.
Yeah. There's a lot here, and the more I watch it, the more it's clear that this does seem to have been quite a shift from Eternal in terms of the potential gameplay loop that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So that's pretty awesome. I'm very, very, very excited to see what this is going to be. It's going to run great. It's going to look great, and it should play awesome.
Yeah.
Curiously, though, this was also revealed as coming to... Even on the Xbox channel, it's coming to Xbox Systems, Steam, and PS5. So they are not changing that approach, which I think makes sense, given that for a lot of the Bethesda stuff especially, I think it makes sense to sort of keep that sort of multi-platform approach, because that's definitely, these types of single-player focused games definitely benefit from being on as many platforms as possible in terms of getting eyes on the game and sales. It does say it's coming to Game Pass as well, though, so that's kind of the big benefit I guess Microsoft gets out of owning Bethesda, is essentially to bring the games to Game Pass on day one. So
right.
I think that makes sense.
I'd also hope possibly for a Switch 2 version at some point, because the panic button Doom games on Switch were always very impressive, and Doom 2016 in particular on Switch, I think I have like 170 hours played on my Switch. For Doom 2016, I just played a lot of that game, so for sure this is a title that would be good on the go. I think it could be, at least.
Or what if there's a Switch 1 port?
Maybe that's less appealing.
I don't think so. That would not be great. No, I think it's pretty much... if we had to make a wager right now, I would say it's absolutely going to come to the next Switch. Obviously, they can't announce that yet. But, depending on when that comes out, like, what if... Like, conceivably, this could either be like a launch title or, something that comes not that far after launch, right? Like, it's not announced, but I could see that happening. That would be pretty slick.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was easily, I think, one of my favorite games shown today.